Notable women came out and spoke about music and how much it means to them. Michelle Obama got a standing ovation. But everybody's talking about Drake. Yeah. Our friend up here in Canada won an award for his song God's Plan. Have you ever seen this video?
I've not seen it.
Okay, so God's Plan is this video of Drake like walking around in Florida handing out money. How I wish I was walking around Florida the day Drake was handing out money. And so the conversation about God is coming up a lot in the music scene. We're hearing about Avril Lavigne's new album and her new song Head Above Water, where she talks about her relationship with God and depending on God. And then the Biebs, who of course we know made his debut, television debut right here on 100 Huntley Street many years ago, sat down with Vogue and his new wife Haley and talked about his relationship with God and how much he depends on his relationship with his pastor, as well as the gospel categories. They were shining so brightly at the Grammys as well.
Absolutely, Maggie. And we congratulate the 3 winners of the 5 gospel categories, Tori Kelly.
Yay, Tori!
And Greg is going to be happy about this.
Yes.
He was praying for Lauren Daigle to win, and
yes,
she did.
Lauren.
And also Jason Crabb, one of my favorite artists as well. And here's a portion of their thanks.
I want to thank Kirk Franklin because the fact that he just took me under his wing and really just saw the passion that I had for gospel and just for the Lord, and he really saw that I wanted to do this, and he just completely took me under his wing and made it happen. And so, Kirk, I love you so much. I'm sharing this with you.
This record, I'll tell you, it just came out of a season of realizing we're just supposed to look up. With everything that we do, we're supposed to have love. And I love that music gives us the opportunity to look up. It gives us the opportunity to spread love to the entire world.
That's awesome. Check out our YouTube channel for more great music like our conversation with your friend, Mr. Crab, as well as so many more. Well, we have a great program in store for you. Let's get started. We are so happy that you've joined us today. Now, don't you love a good love story, Junior?
I do love a good
love story. You do?
I do love a good love story.
I think historically you are the first man I've ever heard say that.
I'm representing many men who are afraid to say they like love stories, Maggie.
Well, our guest today found love despite alcoholism and abuse. You'll want to hear Betty's story. And
author and Bible commentator Daniel Stickland joins us with some encouragement for those who may be feeling lost and forgotten today.
And we want to provide an update. We love good news around here on 100 Huntley Street. We want to provide an update on our clean water initiative. Many of you know we had a special called Every Drop Counts, and every dollar counted through this initiative in December. People have given so compassionately, and we are excited to report that over 200 families in Haiti will have clean water in their very own homes, thanks to your support. Biosand filters will be installed, allowing children to drink non-contaminated water from their kitchens. In Uganda as well, Junior, 9 villages are going to have access to clean water through the restoration of refurbishing of broken, unused wells. This means, get this, 8,000 plus people will be drinking clean water, and the overall health and vitality of these communities will improve. And that is because of faithful givers like you up in Canada, so many hours and miles away, seeing this need and saying, yes, I can help. And can I just thank you on behalf of the many families that I've met. I've been in Uganda and in Haiti recently. I've seen the dire need of something so basic as clean water, and to know that something that I take for granted, you take for granted, is going to be able to help so many people in these countries. So thank you, thank you, thank you once again. Watch this.
Empowerment. It's really foundational to everything that we do here. It's kind of the driving force behind how we set up our programs. It's the reason that we manufacture filters here in Haiti. We can provide employment for people. Everything we do is focused on that. We want people to be part of the decision to have better health. We want them to make that decision for their families, and we want them to have that sense of dignity from being a part of that solution for themselves. Because Haiti's had so much aid come in that in some ways people have been removed from that. And if the country's going to move forward, they have to be part of that solution.
Changing lives, saving lives is what we want to do first and foremost, but there's so many things that come with that. We talk about saving lives, it's through clean water. We also talk about empowerment and sustainability and those things that are the core of who the mission is. Saving lives means that we're empowering people.
I know for myself, being here has taught me more about who God's made me to be. It's life-changing, and I think then you get to see the fruit and you get to see what He's doing. And that's really when I look over the years, I've seen just time and time again, Him taking us through things and getting to the other side and going, that's what was going on. I think we're just called as people to care for each other as a foundational thing. We should care about each other. I think in a situation where we know that we can do something simple to help others have what we have and consider a basic right, like if we can do that, we should be trying to do it.
I think that we do say water is life, and when you donate towards a filter, yes, they get a filter with clean water in their home that impacts 5 people. But it's a generational change. We're teaching our young children that clean water saves your life, that you're not going to be sick anymore, that you can go to school regularly.
It would be hard to spend your donor money in a better place. We're helping so many people for so little money, and it's such a long-term investment.
Merci, gracias.
Merci, gracias.
Disappointment is a feeling we all have, but very few of us know how to process it, what to do about it, and most importantly, how to find God's goodness and wisdom in the midst of it.
New York Times bestselling author Lisa TerKeurst unveils her heart amidst shattering circumstances in her powerful new book, It's Not Supposed to Be This Way, Finding Unexpected Strength When Disappointments Leave You Shattered.
The past 3 years of my life have been the absolute most excruciating years that I have ever been through.
From emergency surgery to a cancer diagnosis to the devastating reality of her husband's infidelity, Lisa reveals how disappointments are unlikely pathways to extraordinary outcomes.
I'm excited to share my book, It's Not Supposed to Be This Way, with 100 Huntley Street viewers. I wrote this book because I know a lot of us feel lost when we're asking, why me? Why this? Why now? And I think when you request your copy today, you will better understand God never wants to be reduced down to a math equation where A plus B equals C. I think you'll see God doesn't want to be explained away. He wants to be invited in. And I'll be that friend to lead you to the greatest hope, even in the midst of difficult circumstances.
This book is a must-read and is our special thanks for helping us be a beacon of light to people in need of hope that only God can give. For a minimum gift of $55 or more to support our growing media mission, you'll receive this inspirational resource that will help you find unexpected strength. Quantities of this highly popular book are limited, so please act now and consider getting a second copy for a loved one who needs encouragement. Call 1-800-265-3100 or visit crossroads.ca/hope and request your copy right now.
We are big believers on this program that where you start is not necessarily where you end up. My guest today is a great example of that. Betty Becker, welcome.
Thank you.
You have quite a story. We're going to try to fit it in here. And you know, it starts when you were young. You fell in love with a man 7 years older than you, and like every young girl, right, you dream of this amazing fairy tale life. But what happened?
Well, I got married when I was 16 years old. I actually made a commitment to the Lord in the woods by myself when I was 12 years old. Didn't know what that was, but all I did was talk to Jesus, and he became very real to me. But as I grew, and my grandma passed away when I was 12, who had adopted me, I felt very lonely and abandoned because she was gone, and I did my own thing. I didn't know of churches that were believing what I was learning. So as a teenager, I was a typical teenager. Met a young man of the same faith. He had gone to university. He was good looking. He was 7 years older than I was, and I was intrigued. And at 16, I married him. And we were married for 17 years. Now, I did not know when I got married that he was drunk. He was very polite when we dated. We had a good time. We went to dances. We did the party thing. He was very courteous. And I wasn't aware of the situation I was getting into till I was married 10 days and got beat up for the first time. Wow. And I lived in that situation for 17 years. At 17 years, I knew he never liked what he did.
And you stayed, like that whole time, you know, him in ditches and drunk and beating you.
Somebody asked me in Quebec once why I stayed, and I said, one thing is I knew he loved me, I knew he was never unfaithful to me, and I knew he didn't like what he was doing. But he didn't seem to have any control over it. So at 17 years, he actually fell to his knees by the hitch of the tractor. He was a farmer, and he said, God, all by himself, if you're real, there has to be more to life than this. And right at that point, God healed him, saved him, and delivered him.
Wow.
He was drinking a 26 rye and 12 to 18 beer every day, smoking a pack of Export A and a box of Old Ports every day, and chewing snus in the barn, because we had a dairy, you couldn't smoke in the barn. And from that day, for the next 21 years, he never drank, smoked, threw food, hit me, none of those nasty things. I got a new creation. He was into the Word, and he was a powerful man of God.
Wow, that is not a normal story. You know, a lot of times people have to walk through a journey to get free from addiction, but amazing. Now, you yourself, as you said, found faith as a little girl, kind of went away from that, obviously, during this really tough marriage. How did you turn back to faith? Was it the change in him?
No. Well, the change in him was dramatic. He didn't tell me for 2 years what had actually happened to him, but he came in from the farm, and he just said things are going to change. And I thought, how? And there was a dramatic change, and I was just glad for the change. And we started watching Christian television and watching Father Bob and Cal Bombay and all those early interviewers on 100 Huntley Street. I accepted the Lord many times over through 100 Huntley Street and started walking with the Lord and walked hand in hand with my husband in that walk.
Now, you know, even though he changed, when you have all that history, 17 years of being abused, how was the journey to heal your marriage and to forgive him, really?
Well, it took about 10 years for that to happen, for the love to come back, because I never got since I hated him, and I'm thankful for that. So the day that he quit drinking, there was no unforgiveness to deal with. But I didn't love him, so it took about 10 years for that to come back.
Wow. Yeah. And you had a healed marriage in the end.
We had a healed marriage.
Tell me about those last 21 years.
Well, there was a lot. You know, when you've been abused, you have that feeling of not realizing God can love you so much. So I was actually in Medicine Hat at a hockey tournament one day, and my husband had something happen. When we came home, he stayed home because his mom had passed away. His dad didn't like to be alone, and I was with our son in the Hat. And what happened there was he was reading in the bedroom, and he looked up, and there was a vision of me in the doorway. And he was telling me about it after I got home 2 weeks, and he said, I've never seen you look so beautiful. And he said, I knew it was a vision, so I said, God, I don't see her that way. And God said, well, I do, so loud that the window in our bedroom cracked. And it was still cracked when I sold the farm years later. But he said, okay, okay, and he was afraid. And a few weeks later, he told me that story, and instantly the love that God has for all of us fell from my head. I had the head knowledge, but it went from my head to my heart. And I knew how much God loved me, and it's never left.
Everybody needs to feel that, and we can all have it. All we have to do is ask him for it, and he will give us that love and let us know how loved we are. But your journey continues. You lost Bob, unfortunately, to a battle with cancer. After 21 years of happy marriage, you were going around sharing your story of how God can transform lives. Happy single, and you were going to stay that way, but it was not your destiny. There's more to this story. We're going to meet maybe part 2 of her story in just a moment.
I often say when I speak, I was very content with my life, seeing lives changed and hearts and bodies healed. That's still my heart's desire, and Jesus is still my first love. Dennis knows that. But I would never have known what it was like to be so incredibly happy.
I'm here with Gloria Willoughby from Crossroads Prayer Center. Gloria, we have an urgent need right now.
Yes, we need more volunteer prayer partners. We get over 1,200 calls on the prayer lines every day, and yet some of them we just don't get to. We don't have enough prayer partners. Sometimes there's upwards of 15 people waiting in the queue. Yet last year, there were over 2,100 people who began their faith journey with Jesus. We just have to get those calls.
We don't want to drop one call. What does someone need to do to become a volunteer prayer partner?
Well, do you care about people? Are you open to praying with people? And do you have a computer? Please go to the website at crossroads.ca/prayer and fill in the prayer partner application today. You'll be amazed at how God will use your life to transform hundreds of callers through His love and by your prayers.
You heard it. If you can volunteer to make a difference through prayer, visit crossroads.ca/prayer.
Is it your time to become a monthly partner? If you enjoy watching 100 Huntley Street, if you believe Crossroads Media Missions is critical to reaching our younger generation online with relevant Christian content, and if you want our 24/7 prayer phone lines and now new prayer chat lines to answer calls for help and hope, then please become one of the 1,000 new monthly partners we're looking for this month. Call today, 1-800-265-3100 to become a monthly partner.
As a viewer, donor, or follower of Crossroads programming, we value your feedback. We want to hear from you about what we're doing well and where you think we can still improve. Please use your voice and take a minute to sign up and share your thoughts with us at crossroads.ca/feedback. As a thank you for your time, you'll have a chance to win a 6-month Castle subscription. Sign up and participate in future surveys to help us serve you better.
Well, we left off the first part of this interview with Betty Becker losing her husband, being happy being on her own, no intention of meeting someone else. I'd like to introduce you to Dennis. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
You, just like Betty, who lost her husband Bob to cancer, you lost your wife Lucille to cancer. And it was about a year later you met this lovely woman. Now tell me, what is it about this lovely woman that interested you?
There was something about her that the Lord confirmed over the time that, in fact, she did fit very clearly the picture.
Okay, so you were in a process. Now, you met him, nice guy and everything, but you weren't even thinking in that direction.
No.
So tell me about your thoughts when you met him.
Well, we met and we were introduced, and that night we went to a pastor's meeting. The couple we were staying with were both ordained pastors as well. The next day I was in a ladies' retreat. I didn't see him. The day after that, he was going to do some touring, in Quebec. And I went up to bed that night and God laid him on my heart, and I thought, what's going on here? I said, God, if this is you, you're messing up my life.
Right, because you were determined to go it on your own.
I was shocked. And then I laid down in bed and I said, but I know you know what's good for me better than I do, so if this is you, you're just going to have to make it real plain to me. If this is you, tell him to ask me to go to Ottawa tomorrow. Now, I didn't know he was planning to go to Ottawa. And the next morning I got up and I was putting some breakfast on, and the lady of the house was out and her husband was out. He came up from his room in the office and said, what are you doing today? I said, well, I'm being picked up to go to northern Quebec to minister for a week, but I'm free today. And so I thought I'd do the tourist thing and go to Ottawa. I wondered if you'd like to go along.
And you're like,
I had to sit down in a chair. I didn't tell him until after we were engaged nearly a year later. But God had given me a word. So I stayed 3 feet away from him all that day. I didn't even use the armrest in the car.
So let's get down to the proposal, because that's what every woman really wants to know. How did you propose to her?
Well, I told her before I came out to BC, we went to BC. Her 2 sons and one of my sons lived in Langley area. And I knew I was going to propose to her. I knew, and I had emailed her and said, I have something to ask you. Who should I ask? Your father, perhaps, or whatever. And I didn't tell her what I was going to ask her, but obviously she knew. Anyway, when we got to Abbotsford, we went out to the park in Abbotsford. We sat on the bench, we watched people, and we started walking back to the car. And in the parking lot.
In the parking lot?
In the parking lot, beside the car. I said, will you marry me?
Oh, and you said?
Yes.
On the road.
We're just about out of time, but I wanna just hear briefly from each of you about, you weren't planning on having that second chapter, you particularly, and you didn't know she was the one. So Tell me about like just listening to God's leading in your life and how that has worked out now. You've been married 14 years, right?
Well, it's been, I mean, the thing that amazes me is that God is very, very precise, and He's able to answer our specific questions, and very, very clearly through 3 or 4 revelations made it very clear to me that this was His plan.
I often say when I speak, I was very content with my life, seeing lives changed and hearts and bodies healed. That's still my heart's desire, and Jesus is still my first love. Dennis knows that. But I would never have known what it was like to be so incredibly happy.
That's so good to hear. And I think sometimes there's other chapters in your life that are hard to see in those hard moments, like when you lose a spouse. But if you trust God, He has more for you. And I think that needs to be an encouragement to so many people today. Thank you for coming to share your story.
I would just like to say that if you're looking for someone in your life, I'm not just talking to 19 to 30-year-olds, I'm talking to seniors. Let God do the choosing. Go to Him to choose your mate. Don't start looking yourself.
Love that. And if you need encouragement today, or you just want someone to talk to, or even pray for you about some of the things that are on your heart, maybe you're in a really hard place and you can't see that there could ever be a happy ending like the Beckers, give us a call. We'd love to pray with you. We'd love to walk with you on your journey. That number is on your screen, and that number is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll be right back.
Marriages have got to be able to take care of a crisis. You've got to figure how to repair something, but you also can really focus on what are the preventative things that minimize the necessity even of repair when there's ruptures.
You know, Maggie asked me on the top of the show if I love a good love story, and I do. The greatest love story you can ever experience is that Jesus loves you, and that's where your value comes from. You may feel rejected, you may feel as though you're abandoned and you're not feeling loved, but I just want to encourage you that Jesus loves you. He values you. And you may feel as though the person that you love is not loving you back, but I just want to encourage you to reach out to the one who loves you without anything attached, unconditional love, and His name is Jesus. We want to encourage you. There are people here who can point you to the scriptures to show you in writing where Jesus truly loves you and encourage you to walk in that place of love. Call our prayer lines, 1-866-273-4444, or email us at prayer@crossroads.ca. Our Bible commentator Daniel Strickland has some encouragement for those who are feeling lost and forgotten. Take a listen.
You know, one of my favorite names of God is early on in this book of Genesis, and it happens through a woman named Hagar. Hagar is brought in as sort of a plan B. And we kind of have this family of God, Abraham and Sarah, and they're like tracking on this like promise that God had for this son, the son of promise, the son of blessing. But it's not happening. And they're like, this isn't working. So kind of out of a human desperation, Sarah finds Hagar as a handmaid and kind of is like, this is plan B. This is the option because Hagar can have a son. And so it kind of creates this like distorted family idea. And in the middle of it, Sarah gets ticked off and starts treating Hagar terribly. And Hagar gets driven out of the community, and she's kind of really given up on life. And she feels completely invisible. I mean, she's kind of the part of the story that doesn't belong and doesn't make any sense. And right when she's in that kind of despairing spot, Genesis chapter 21, God shows up. And God says to her, what are you doing out here? And Hagar says, like, hello, like, my life is a mess. Like, I don't belong. Like, I don't belong in this story. And kind of as you're reading this story, you kind of agree with her. You're like, yeah, kind of. You don't belong in this kind of story. And God says to her, no, Hagar, I see you. And you matter to me. And I actually have a plan for your life too. And I actually know that you're pregnant with a son and you're going to bear a son. And I actually have a plan for him too. And there's this like, Hagar's like, what? I mean, she is invisible. She is forgotten. She is like the people of God's plan B. And even that person is sitting, you know, ready for death, really feeling like she's just given in to the inevitability of her own life circumstances. God interrupts with a word that says, I see you and you matter to me. And actually, I have a plan for your life. And how many of us feel that way? How many people in the world think like it's too messy and it's too hard and they're left sort of abandoned and stuck and invisible and feel forgotten and useless? I mean, some people, even at the hands of good Christian people, have been discarded for whatever reason, find themselves alone and seemingly invisible and forgotten. And God comes to that person on that side of the story, seemingly on the margins, in the wilderness, alone, forgotten, and says, hey, what are you doing here? And then God says to Hagar, you know, get up and go back to the camp. And I want you to tell them that I've got this, I've sent you. So Hagar goes back, you know, this like plan B, this discarded woman goes back to the camp, knocks on the door. The camp's like, what do you want? She's like, I've seen God, which is what everybody wants. And they say to her, tell us, what is he like? And this is what she says, I have seen the God who sees me. If you feel invisible, forgotten, discarded, not part of plan A, I got good news for you. God sees you, knows you, calls you, has a future plan for you. Let's find it.
I have seen the God who sees me. At the end of the day, we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. And, you know, if you don't take anything else away from this show today, I hope that you know that you are seen by God. And if you don't feel that way, if at this moment you're like, Maggie, I really don't feel like I'm being seen, you don't know all of the stuff I'm going through, know that God sees it all. He sees the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as Junior had said so profoundly, he doesn't judge us. He loves us. This is the greatest love story. And that is the love between you and your Father. So please do call our prayer lines because they would love to encourage you today. Do you remember the day when you really saw that? You saw yourself through the eyes of how God sees you, Junior?
I do, and I continue to evolve. Because I've been thinking about that just last week, that I'm so glad it's not about what I do, but it's all about what Jesus does, and he makes me a part of the big story.
Yeah.
It's so great to be a part of God's story. So I don't have to try to do the religious stuff. All I have to do is to just depend on him because it's his story. And he gives me the opportunity to be a part of it.
And in that relationship, when you find yourself in the relationship with Jesus, then all of a sudden you start to see that these old things that you used to do, these vices, these bad habits you might have had, start to change because you see yourself for the potential that God sees in you. You look in the mirror and you see a different person. And you're totally right. It's a day-to-day process. I know every single day I wake up and I'm saying to myself, God, I have to die to myself and live for you today. And that is a constant reminder.
Very, very profound. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, and thank you. And check out our website, 100huntley.com, for further information and great clips, including some of Danielle's great Bible studies. Thanks for watching again. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a member of the Canadian Council of Christian Charities. You can write to Crossroads, P.O. Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R 4M2.
Cheryl Weber's wardrobe, provided by Melanie Lynn.
When I see, David Maines, he built this incredible thing where there was this show and a phone number. There's this notion that content can move your heart to a place of surrender, and then you get to talk to someone else. That legacy deserves continuing into the digital space.
What excites me about Castle is the fact that it's not only just great inspirational content.
It's not a place for you to just binge watch. We want you to belong.
It's streaming hope. It's streaming encouragement. It's streaming love.
Even though you may be alone watching the content, when it moves something in your soul, we're here for you to talk.
And I just look at it as a new way to evangelize that's very purposeful and very strategic.
To move people to a deeper place with God. That's really what it is.